therapy for the rest of your life because your boyfriend slapped you, you have much bigger problems than your choice of men. I don't want to be mean, but many people make things into being far bigger than they really are. Half of the things I've heard recently have been the textbook definition of first world problems. If you want to hear a recounting of a real horrible event in which I was involved, pay close attention. At 16, I was emancipated from my parents because of repeated abuse suffered by me and my sister. While my sister, who was only 12 at the time, was sent to live with our aunt, I moved into an apartment with my boyfriend. Despite it being terribly hard to find a job at that age to pay my bills, I did it. And I don't mean by selling myself like many of the runaways and the street girls I had met. Even though it meant we didn't get to see much of each other, my boyfriend's job at his family's company allowed us to live a stable and happy life. A life far better than I'd ever known growing up. My 17th birthday was the first year I'd ever received an actual present that wasn't purchased at a dollar store or shoplifted from Goodwill. My only regret at the time was that I couldn't bring my sister along with me. But the judge felt I was too young to handle such a large responsibility. I've been raising her for as long as I could remember, but he didn't want to hear it. August 14th of 2005 was my sister's 13th birthday, and I wanted to buy her something really special. A few days before her party, Brendan, my boyfriend, and I had a rare day off together, and he volunteered to drive me to the mall to get her a gift. Since he was the one doing the driving, we had to take his beloved BMW M3 that his dad had bought him for his 16th birthday. There were many times I truly believed that he loved that car more than me, but the pettiness of thinking that made me ashamed. He dreamed his whole life of owning one of those cars and had been working any job he could get since he was 12 to save money for one. He'd no doubt earned it, but this fact was sometimes lost on me. Any of you ladies out there who has a man that seems to love his car more than life itself will hopefully understand the petty jealousy I often felt towards his. It wasn't out of the ordinary to have guys approach him and tell him how cool the car was. I think he liked the attention the car got, and it got him. The second we parked, I could tell the two men were lusting over the M3. It became very obvious quickly that I wasn't what they were eyeballing. I continued to watch their focus, and it never broke from that car for a second. Unfortunately, the two stores I checked didn't have what I needed. Brendan and I stopped to have a slice and then headed back to the car. As soon as we exited the mall, we saw the two guys I'd noticed earlier, standing around the car like they were waiting for us to return. The time was approaching 9 p.m. and it was already getting dark. The parking lot was almost completely empty. As we got closer to the guys, I started to get a weird vibe from the two. Their body language was tense and unnatural, and as they spoke to each other, they would laugh in an obviously uncomfortable manner, almost like they were attempting to soothe their nerves. I assumed this was because they were a little younger than Brendan and nervous about talking to him. When I got to the car, I went around to the passenger door to get in like normally. Brendan said hi to them and asked if he could help, in a friendly manner. The taller of the two asked him if the car was for sale. None of the guys came off as aggressive in any way at this point, and Brendan was never anything other than respectful to them. He didn't have to think about the offer. His answer was a brief, matter-of-fact no. Thinking it ended right there, he began to turn his back and get in the car, but apparently that wasn't good enough for the guy, and he must have felt Brendan should rethink the offer. He grabbed Brendan as he turned. "Hey, don't turn your back on me. I wasn't finished talking to you. The rich boy thinks he's too good to talk to us." When he said the last part, he was facing his friend. Being no stranger to people with aggressive attitudes, a sick feeling grew in my stomach. Brendan did his best to defuse the situation, but it quickly became clear that the dude wanted a confrontation. Once more, this time around in a far more aggressive manner, he asked Brendan if he wanted to sell the car, and once again, he did his best to decline the offer in a friendly way. Then the guy changed tactics and demanded that Brendan give him the car. When he said this, I started to feel very scared. This idea must have struck him as insane because when Brendan heard it, he began laughing uncontrollably in the guy's face. His expression showed just how angry Brendan's reaction made him. This was when he pulled the gun and stuck it in Brendan's face. My body began shaking the second I saw it. Now it seemed we were getting to the actual goal of this exchange. We were going to be robbed. I glanced over at the other a-hole standing at the back of the car. His rotten teeth-filled smile made the bile rise up from my stomach and into my mouth. Just the taste almost caused me to vomit, but I managed to stifle it back. His buddy with the gun told Brendan, through gritted teeth, to laugh in his face again. Wisely he didn't. He attempted to de-escalate again by trying to reason with the guy. He told him that the car wasn't actually as great as it looked. The fact was that it cost a lot of money to maintain, but the guy said nothing. I saw Brendan's expression change at this point. It was a look I'd only ever seen once. He was terrified and knew he was in trouble. This desperation caused him to do something very foolish. When the guy looked back toward his partner, Brendan grabbed for the gun. They began fighting for control of it, and soon fell on the ground out of my sight. I was afraid the guy's partner would rush to help him, so I rushed him instead. It didn't take long for him to throw me off. Just as I landed, I heard the shot. It made me jump. I had to see if anyone had been hurt. When the guy with the gun ran past me to his car, followed by the other, a horrible feeling came over me. Even before I'd seen him, I knew Brendan had been shot. Honestly, I was too terrified to look, but I knew I had to. What I saw would take away my will to live for many years to come. He was lying flat on his back, writhing silently in pain and staring hopelessly into the starless sky. I shuffled over to him as fast as possible in a vain attempt to stop the blood pouring from his stomach. Doing my best to make his end as peaceful as possible, I held him and sang quietly to him as he slowly bled out of my arms. I'm not really sure how long we stayed there. Does it really matter? I'm sure he'd already been dead for some time when the ambulance and police showed up. Those monsters ended his life for this stupid car. In the end, didn't even bother to take it with them when they left. What a waste. If anybody reading this cares about what happened to the two guys, I have 2 words for you. Not much. The shooter was able to cut a deal on a lesser charge and is scheduled to be released sometime next year. As for his little buddy, his age at the time and it being his first conviction was taken into consideration. The yuckmouth sleazoid only served 5 years with an additional 10 of probation. If you've done the math, you realize he'll be free and clear himself soon. No 2 men in the history of crime got off so easily. If I would have been born a man, I would have committed a crime just in the hopes I'd be put in the same place as one or both of them, so I could break a shank off into their guts and watch them bleed, just as I had to watch the only man in my life who has ever treated me with respect or love. It's painfully clear that I still have a long way to go before I'm able to put this behind me.